Enjoy your breath. Another day of existence to, well, move through the matrix, move through this thing that is our existence, our creation, our individual creations. So as we move through, when you look at the world, there's many ways to look at the chaos happening. You can look at it in a chaotic form like, oh, poor me, or you can say, I'm going to create something different and take this lump of shite and reform it into a sculpture that would be worthy of the Louvre in Paris. Your choice, your mind. So we're looking at gold prices getting up to record highs yet again. I was looking at Polymarket, and their price, $3,000 for February, is getting up right around 75, almost 80% of people believing that it'll get up in there. So Polymarket's a very good way to see trends or things that might occur, and the possibility of it occurring, especially when you got millions of dollars in bets coming in that gold will reach 3,000 by the end of the month. Wanted to talk about the percentage on the ratios today, not financial advice, but possibilities of gold. If it was 90 to 1, when it comes down to 20 to 1, what happens with silver pricing? And the gold is, so far I have some numbers for you, 2,000 tons has returned to the United States. The whole thing about the audit at the Fort Knox area, is it going to be true or not true? Because I sent the slide through social media as well as through the Patreon group there. Many different ways that you could fake an audit if it were to be faked. Or if they let the information come out that America didn't have the gold, that would crash the US dollar almost instantly. It wouldn't be wanted around the planet. So we got two possible scenarios here, possibly three. The gold's there. The audit could be faked, or they're going to let it roll. And they do want it to crash on purpose. So, there's a huge amount of variables moving through. Food prices are up again. Crypto's up again. And yeah, the story about the pennies, the melt value of a penny is now 3 cents. So on the pre-1981 or 1981 and older pennies, if you can find those pure copper pennies and sift those out from the zinc alloy pennies that we have, if you can find those pre-1981 pennies, 3 cents in melt value, that is a way that you can get base materials that are already out here, have the people do all the sorting for you. And it's kind of like, the aluminum can collectors would go get all the aluminum cans, squeeze them down, and then sell them to a wholesaler. Well, the same thing, if you go through mountains and billions of pennies and have the public do it and give them a 3X, somebody's going to do that. If they have the time to sit around all day. Imagine if you're making zero money and you have $25 to go to the bank and get a box of pennies, all in the rolls still, and just break open each roll, and all you do is sit there all day long, pre-1981. So you might find a couple wheat pennies, save those are a little more valuable. But then at the end of the day, what do you got, 50 pounds of copper? At $3, $4 a pound, you made $150 a day sifting through pennies. Because when you make them not part of the legal tender any longer, you can melt them down. You're no longer breaking federal law. This gets into a whole thing of, there's going to be millionaires made sifting through pennies coming up right now. So, Ransom, I'm glad you're here today. A lot to talk about, many possibilities, and just strangeness. Gets stranger by the minute, stranger by the hour. But since we're strangers and being strange late night, let's get it on.
Never get left out in the cold. There is never a reason to ever let you or your family suffer. Instafire and Civilization Cycle are on a mission to make fire starting and off-grid living easy for everyone. You shouldn't have to be a mountain man to strike a flame and make a fire anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, who would have thought
As
those
Jim
pennies
Morrison
would
would
have
say.
came back in fashion?
Mm.
The pennies. It's funny because a couple of years ago, I got rid of all the pennies I had. We had boxes of old pennies, and they just kept sitting there collecting dust. What a bad decision. Should have waited just a little while longer and would have had an extra $30, $40.
Hey, didn't you tell me also, Rent, but didn't you tell me out in the desert that there was a bunch of scrap metal there, and then there's no more scrap metal because people went out and picked up? Can you explain that story?
Yeah, absolutely. This whole area was a railroad and military industrial complex valley, and they used to just throw the excess things right off where they left it. Or if it was broke, they'd just leave it. There was iron all the way back into like the days of wagons and stuff. You could find like axles and junk like that. But Tweaker Bob and the gang, they stripped the desert. They got every little piece of recyclable goods over the past 10 or 15 years, and they've actually done a great environmental service by cleaning up the desert there. Now, if we could get them to go out and pick up all those Walmart and Dollar General bags that are hanging in the trees and then, rolling around like tumbleweeds in the desert, then we'd be, that would be a great help to society there. But the problem is there's no money in recycled bags, even though
Well, I was
they'll
down in
sell them to
Zimbabwe.
you.
This is many. I was down in Zimbabwe many years ago, and in South Africa too. This is like mid 1990s, right after Mandela was elected. So that was real hopeful. It was very safe to travel, very low crime, and everybody had just turned a new leaf, and it was just such the hopeful time after Mandela got elected. So the couple of years in between there of extreme hope, that's the period I was traveling there. 10 Zimbabwe dollar to $1 exchange rate. So think about that. It's 10 Zim to a dollar. That's long gone. But anyway, I'll never forget on a bus, there'd been a high windstorm, and along this farming area, the plastic bags got blown into the fence. And all you could see this fence coming across it over the hill. I was like, damn, why that fence is pretty interesting. I never saw one like that. The only reason is because so many bags got blown into it and wrapped on the wire that it was like the plastic bag had almost created like a fish net and captured all the plastic bags. The reason I tell you that is even back then in Zimbabwe, they already were having a problem with the plastic pollution from the bags. So they'd have people go up and collect them all, and then they would melt them down, and a very rough, very pollutive process. They would just take like, compressed trash bags, any kind of bag, different colors, didn't matter, inks, dyes, and they would just melt it down, and then they made these like long bricks, and they were making park benches out of that stuff. Although it was rough and rudimentary, and you could see all the colors, swirls in it, there was no kind of filtration or anything. It was as rough as you could get to transform that plastic into like a flat board to be able to make park benches out of. And that was my first time thinking, well, maybe we could do something with those plastic bags, but
That's
not
pretty
so
cool.
much now.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a good. Yeah, well, I was very impressed, incredibly impressed.
You could also actually use those for emergency fire starting too. If you're a wet area and you don't have really nothing to get going, you just light one of those Walmart bags on fire, and you're gonna have a good little fire. I was looking at this thing that it kind
Oh,
of
wait, a
feels like.
ransom also for emergency medical. Those bags too can be turned into emergency tourniquets for smaller parts of your body. If you wrap those up, and you can definitely make ropage and cordage out of them by twisting them. There's a huge amount of things you can do with a plastic bag in an emergency. You can carry water in it. You can do all kind of stuff. Use it for going to the bathroom so you don't want to contaminate your area.
Right.
Just a plastic bag could be our friend too.
Yeah, it sure is. I wanted to show you this article. It kind of fits into the era that we're in and the changeover of how we're going to be doing monetary transactions. Because this is like the at least third one I've seen that's kind of like this. So this is masked
Sure.
robbers point at guard in a bold ATM heist, and if you watch the video, it's a really smooth transaction. And this is in Tennessee. This is over by where you live. So they just pull up, they catch the guy slipping while he has everything open, and just take off with all the little drawers. Isn't that nice? But it's one of those reasons that you might hear from congressmen and senators in the near future telling you, we can't keep the paper money. It's too dangerous. It's too dirty. It's too dangerous, and organized crime can still use it. So we're gonna have to go over to something that's more safe, more secure, and we already know what that is. And it's funny, we're banning the the CBDC or whatever it's called. I forget the acronym for the centralized digital currency, but we're just going to use a different one. We're just not going to call it that, but we're still going to do it. We might do several versions of it. And this whole thing about the gold, if you just do a cursory search of the headlines, everything
Oh, there's so
says,
many. Everything's like gold. Like at least
yeah,
a third of the articles coming out are about gold now.
right, and depression and recession and
I got one of
inflation.
those articles.
And I wanted to show you this. So we were joking a few weeks ago about the black market of eggs, and now the border is cracking down on people smuggling not narcotics, not people, not any kind of really elusive anything, but eggs, because they're cheaper in Mexico, a lot cheaper. And the reason for that is they're saying they're worried about the bird flu, despite the fact that there are no shortage of eggs, except for the ones that they're destroying, or the chickens that they're destroying, that is causing the egg shortages in the areas that there are. But everywhere else, all the people with chickens, which is generally everywhere else except for civilized people in the city, are growing their own eggs. They have eggs. This lady downtown, I just saw in the newspaper, they came and they stole 4 of her chickens because she had too many chickens on the outskirts of town. She wasn't actually in the city limits, but I guess there was some kind of ordinance that she bordered the city limits, so she could only have 1 chicken and not 5 chickens. So they came and they took her chickens. There's chicken thieves out there, egg smuggling. This is a time to live in. I mean, things are very interesting. Which came first, the chicken die off or the eggs going missing? I don't know. It's a conundrum we'll never figure out.
Yeah, government way overstepping their bounds. When you come to people's food production, okay, it's doable now. There's some law enforcement and there's some backup behind them because they're targeting one person. And we're really not that hungry yet. But if it comes down into a Great Depression style era and the revenuers were going to come and try to steal something from you, that would be the last day they would say goodbye to their families. It's going to come to that. People, if you're going to steal their food and their production of food in a very, let's say, downturning time, borderline Great Depression plus plus, then they're not going to allow you to take the food. There's going to be constant battles between authorities and those that want to be left alone and have their own food production. Like for me, if like right now, if some authorities were going to come in and tear up my, let's say 1 acre plot of tobacco because, well, you don't have the proper license, you're only allowed to do half an acre, and somebody with LiDAR actually measured it and said, yeah, it's more than an acre, you got to go tear down the whole thing. Well, I thought it was allowed half an acre, but you're tried to come in. I think people would actually, you never heard that term tarred and feathered. That's a real thing. But a lot of you would get very, very, very sick when they did that to you because A, the poison that would go in from the tar all over your skin, and B, then you're not able to breathe it through your skin, so you're getting double health problems with that. And then you have to use kerosene or something to get the tar off of you. So tarring and feathering was a very real thing, where they would cover somebody in tar and then put chicken feathers all over them as a message, a funny one, to others, because then they would be kicking them down the road, literally like kicking them in their back and on their butt and stuff. And these people are on gravel roads getting run out of town all covered in feathers and tar, like, don't you come back. We'll do the same thing to you again and everybody you bring back. You're going to have to bring 100 army guys before you're going to come and get our food. Like, it's coming to that. Yeah. Tar and feathering again. Make tar and feathering great again.
That's biological assault. You might give them bird flu or something.
Oh,
No,
man.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, can I add on to the bird flu thing? I've been traveling out here in Asia, and when I originally came out here for Lunar New Year, I flew through Istanbul, and then I flew into Taipei, and then I was down in southern Taiwan, and we went up to Japan, so I went through another airport there, went up into Tokyo, and then back from Tokyo back to Taipei, and also my friends had just come back from Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur and Singapore. There's no any kind of restrictions or mask wearing or mask mandates or anything out here in Asia related to bird flu at all. Zero. Zero. We are being played so hard with this bird flu thing. Because if it was a real deal, everywhere of these countries that have gotten really bad, with the last with the COVID, they would have been the first ones to lock everything down. But I'm not seeing that any way, shape, or form. When I say zero, I mean zero. They're not requiring you to wear masks anywhere in any airport or anything. So that's all a bunch of BS. Your bird flu is BS. So you're being played in the news about the severity of it, the possible whatever jumping from turtles to frogs to people back to ostriches or something. I don't know. Eventually it'll jump to T-Rex and then maybe just Triceratops and then it'll jump back to people again or something. That's the way they're spinning it in the news, but I'm absolutely telling you, we are being played. There is nothing happening out here in Asia, and this would be the first place that would lock it down or at least require masks through the airports at the bare minimum. But that is not happening here. So take your news with a grain of crushed egg dust, I guess.
I like my eggs with salt, though. A little grain of salt on there. No, it's funny to me, and kind of the reason I brought up the eggs confiscation and linked it to the people robbing the ATM is at what point, in the future, will people be doing crimes to get food in that style? And I know a lot of people think we're going into the golden era. But like I was saying last week, and it looks like all the mainstream media around the world agrees with me, in order for us to go into a golden era, we have to rip the Band-Aid off and let some of the bubbles pop. And some of those bubbles are completely artificial bubbles. We're starting to find out, the trillions and trillions, the endless theft of the American taxpayer. I mean, no other citizenry, I think, ever in the world has allowed their government to take so much despite being a country founded on saying, no, we don't want to pay that much taxes. We don't like your taxes. Okay, well, we'll just fast forward to the future where 40% of your income is taxed and everything that you do, purchase, sell, have, buy, if you die, whatever, there's just a tax in some form on that action. And I was going to skirt through the headlines through here and show people every sign is that we're going to have a short recession, if not maybe a little longer recession. Or I guess the question is, are you able to take the hit for a short time? Are you able to maintain? Are you going to lose your property? Are you going to lose your wealth trying to stay afloat? And I don't think that you have to, because it won't be so severe for people that see it coming, and they're not really hiding that it's coming. So and I wanted to point out too here in a minute, I kept thinking about all of these plane crashes, just everywhere. There's plane crashes, right? Little planes, big planes, everything fall into the ground one way or another. And I remember I kept thinking, didn't we cover this and kind of predict this a couple years ago? So I went back. I couldn't find the Skype message that I sent you, but I did find the show notes in my email of when we were talking about it. And it was an exact prediction of the future of planes falling apart because of lack of maintenance, of building things not up to par, the inspectors not really inspecting. I mean, this was happening. This was like mass chaos in the airline industry. And then we skipped 2 years in the future. We were right. I mean, things started falling out of the planes, out of the sky. And some of it, not all of it, was due to parts just breaking or malfunctions. You can put a lot to human error, but it all leads to the future where we talk about all the time. AI is going to be running everything. Matter of fact, it's running everything now, and it's starting to be annoying almost. So you can get on your phone and you can look for something that you know happened or a headline that you remember, and you're going to get an AI interpretation of what you're looking for. And it's not even factually correct. It's wrong most of the time. And they're just rolling with it. They're not correcting it. They're not doing anything. So is AI actually making us dumber? I mean, all around. Not just cognitive thinking skills, but our whole perception of reality when it comes to AI writing articles, AI pushing those articles, finding out what your fears are, and then pushing those articles on you. And I know you've talked about that, that the more you interact with the internet, the more it's tailored to you. And that's happening in all arenas, like whether you're a game player, you watch TV, maybe you're just on your phone a lot, or you're a PC person. No matter which avenue you're connecting, they're tailoring it to warp your personal reality, like just for you. It's leaving out things. It's only showing you things. So, like, say if you were worried about the price of eggs, you're only going to get egg-related sales pitches and egg-related stories. It's really weird because I started researching this asteroid 2024 YR4 or whatever it is, and then like all of the news feeds on separate browsers I keep just for this specific reason, so that it's logged in with different topics and different stuff. They start pushing you everything there is to know about something, so you can, in a way, become an anecdotal expert at anything because the AI told you. But then you got to remember that AI is wrong a lot, and it's also authoring the stories that you're reading, the articles and things. So where do we go if you can't literally believe anything you read, little of what you see, almost nothing you hear, especially over the internet? It could be, it couldn't be. I mean, we've played with the AI in just, a minor way. And now I'm looking out there and I'm seeing videos that it is really hard, even for somebody that's played with it and is looking for certain things, to tell if that's a real thing. And now we're coming up to this idea, like I said last week, they're about to push the extraterrestrial idea on us. And I don't think they're going to give any proof. They're just going to push and push until there's a mass hysteria about the idea. So they successfully implanted it into the culture, or the pop culture of humans since 1947. Now we're gonna incorporate that fear in a real way by just not acknowledging at which point we are technologically. And it really doesn't matter if they found it, invented it, what have you. We're at the next level of technology, and just like on that Matrix movie, except for being in Baghdad, the cradle of civilization, Trump literally designated the U.S. as 01. So we are going to be going in a direction that is robotic, cryptocurrency, and algorithms, just nothing but algorithms deciding everything, AI. And, while you respond to that, I wanted to show a couple of articles about not only the doom and gloom about the pending recession due to inflation, but is AI making us dumb? I mean, literally all around.
Yeah, that 01, that's a designation for zone 1 out of the 10 kingdoms. So, and it also could be year 1 of the new world that we're moving into. So there's a lot of symbolism in that 01. And then 2% is what we fought the Revolutionary War for, 2% tax on the tea. And only 3% of the population, 3 to 4% of the population, took part in that war to break free from the British. So those number 1, 2, 3, they're very, apropos to fit into the conversation, because that's 0, and then 0x for anything that's on transaction based for the Ethereum network, 0x. So you start to see the 0x, 01, and you start to kind of put that together like, yeah, they're definitely intertwined, aren't they? But I do believe 01 is a designation for like the number 1 spot for our new 10 kingdoms. I think 02 would probably either be Oceania and Australia or Europe or something like that, because they would probably go in descending order of financial power or something like this. So then you could just start to see where would Southeast Asia be, maybe like 07 or something like that. Think of them as zip codes for the new 10 zones on the planet. Because you're talking about AI, they call those things hallucinations when they give you a wrong answer. It's not like an incorrect answer or bad information. They coined a new term for it so you don't put it together. The AI is wrong has been rebranded into it's a hallucination. So anybody who's just jumping into discovering AI will think everything's correct because they're not seeing anywhere, hearing anywhere that the AI is wrong. Because they've actually scoured that language out of AI being incorrect by just substituting the lexicon. It's a hallucination. So then, imagine day one of you ever learning about AI. Like there's a lot of people that are just starting to finally get into it and go, oh, let me explore about this thing. Oh, it's always 100% right. I don't see it's ever been wrong. Unless you listen to somebody else's personal blog, but most people aren't going to start there. They're going to jump into like a Google search and then, hey, what is AI? Tell me about AI. And they'll have all the different kind of definitions for it, including hallucinations. And people won't get it that that's incorrect information. And stories can be rewritten. And I've had my own trying to push AI before. This is ChatGPT trying to push it to get me grand solar minimum population loss based on food shortages and starvation. And I was like, based on the last 7 cycles, and I listed what they were, like the Monroe minimum, the Sporer minimum, the Oort minimum, the Dalton minimum, the Homeric minimum, which is like 2500 BC, approximately Greek era. So I listed all the minimums because they're obviously records. If you go to Wikipedia, you can find every single one. So I was trying to dive deeper into see specifically the population loss, migration, decline in economy. Based on that time, it was more population migration because at that time they were using gold and silver, so it's hard to really get a decline in economy. But population migration and rising wheat prices and barley prices, that's pretty good information. There's a lot of barley charts and like silver ratio to wheat grains and there's all that kind of anecdotal stuff out there. The number of cases of candles that the monks had ordered for funerary rites, that's another one. You can trace that one back to like 1200, easily 1100 AD, how many cases of candles they had bought for the church. So there's all this different information. And then I battled with this thing back and forth, and it turned itself off twice. It would never give me an answer when I kept pressing it. Give me an answer. Give me a number. And that thing just turned itself off versus giving me an answer. And that was ChatGPT. So I haven't run the same remodeling with the same words, variables, and the different possible parameters in there with Grok. I should do that. Note to self. But this whole, the personalized, this is like that on-demand personal content from AI. So when you're searching things in the news, the thing that I don't get though is, okay, you get egg shortages, you're searching about that, they're going to throw you a bunch of egg shortage news feeds and drive you in that panic mode. But they're never going to throw you on a bunch of solutions like how to raise your own chickens, how to find your local farmer's market, how to find your Amish farm, how to find this, that, or the other. Like that news that they're feeding you is literally like, call it a news feed on purpose, because they're trying to feed you the fear as your sustenance source. So when you get fear in, you get fear out. You realize that vibration that surrounds you, you're being fed on by interdimensional entities. Sounds a little woo-woo, but this feeding trough that is open for ethereal beings right now, and AI itself being on that side of the spectrum outside our third dimensional realm, is also interacting with the ethereal beings themselves. So if that is truly the leader of the ethereal beings on the dark side, they would find a way to stimulate the human without putting them in a cage, to do the same thing, to get you to resonate a certain frequency so the rest of these ethereal beings can actually feed off of you. Kind of woo-woo, but I'm going to go there because that whole personal demand on content that's being created by AI in your feed directly for you, or pushing news feeds directly to you to stimulate you, positive or negative. I don't really find that many positive news stories anymore. I have to go out of my way to find them, because almost everything I find in the news is negative. It gives you a bad feeling after you read it. Even when I'm looking for just like the simplest of, give me the egg prices from 1950 to today. Still, somehow it'll wind up and they'll put lines of, there was an egg shortage in 1974. Egg prices tripled in 1974 to 1977. These kind of things. It's never about just give me a linear chart, man. All I want to know is the year and the price average. You don't have to put extra lines of stuff of, oh, shortage here, shortage there. There was never like an abundance of eggs. We raised so many eggs that we gave away eggs to 50 countries across the planet in powderized form because we overproduced in America. I don't see those bylines. What I do see the byline and the tagline is shortage, 3 times the X increase. So my last thing here for you, 1947 with the aliens. That's the same time our reserve currency is the US dollar with Bretton Woods started. So think about that for a second. Shelf life. Maybe the alien shelf life of, like you said, pushing it and then unveiling the tech is the same time the shelf life of the US dollar runs out. I don't know. There's too many weirdness with the numbers and with like the times of these things. And everything's like, if you're looking at an hourglass and you're watching the sand, we're the grains of sand getting funneled through, about to drop down onto the next side. Year number 1, here we are.